And we're back here on the NBC4 Sports Digital Roundtable. We're going to talk some Cavaliers, and dominating does not even begin to describe what happened between the Cavaliers and the Heat. For some more analysis, we bring in Matthew Herchik. You might know him as an NBC4 anchor, but for the purposes of this conversation, I don't know, we'll call him like a Cavaliers expert.
I don't know about that.
He might be a fan, but I mean, he knows a lot, and we're going to talk about it. Matthew, I think like, what was it? 122 points was the margin of victory for the entire series. That's like insane.
Yeah.
I don't think we expected what we saw in game 4.
No, not at all. Yeah, I just saw that scrolling through Instagram. Actually, yeah, it was 122 points for the whole series, most I think in NBA history. And yeah, I think what was impressive about last night's game is just the they didn't come with any complacency whatsoever. You know, it was a game that they could have kind of come into another road game and expected the Heat maybe to bounce back from that game 3 loss, but. Yeah, they just really came out and they were ready to put the series away and not let them hang around at all or have to go back to Cleveland for a game 5 or anything. So, I mean, you saw for the very first play of the game, Jared Allen stole a pass on that first play, took it the other way for a dunk, and the Cavs never looked back.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell got off to a hot start, and yeah, it was over early.
I mean, it was like 11-8 may have been like the closest it got, and then like I saw like later, and then it was like they're still at 8 points.
I think like
the first quarter,
like the win probabilities that they have like on ESPN.com and stuff like that. It got to 99% in the first quarter.
It's
So
insane.
yeah, it was
For them to do this on the road. Okay, and let's kind of give a reality check. I mean, obviously the Cavs, we've known they're really good. We've known this from the beginning. Top seed in the East. They had, what was it, like a 15-16 game winning streak going in?
Yeah, I think they had 2 15-game winning streaks
at
this
least
year,
12. Yeah. And then, and the Heat, they were coming in with a little momentum as a play-in, but I mean, their record kind of speaks for itself. They were kind of trying to be competitive. I thought it would go to at least 5. I thought they'd get one game in there.
I thought they would too. When you look at a couple of guys that they have like Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, you thought that they would have at least one game where maybe that they would be able to steal one back home in Miami. But yeah, like you said, I mean the Cavs have all year long talked about we haven't accomplished anything yet, and they've been waiting for this opportunity in the postseason. I think a lot of the so-called experts and things like that have said, well, let's wait to see if they can do it in the playoffs. And you hear the term heat culture and stuff like that all the time. And Eric Spoelstra, obviously one of the best coaches in the NBA. It's not often you see teams coached by him get drubbed the way that Miami did twice there on their home court. But yeah, the Cavs just come out. They looked like a number 1 seed. I mean, Miami obviously had to play the 2 play-in games, so maybe there was a little issues there with how tired they may have been, things like that. But yeah, credit to the Cavs, coming out and looking like the 1 seed that they were.
What do you think is the biggest difference between this year and last year? What strikes me, and I'm not the biggest follower because we're covering a lot of other things here in sports
a little bit,
but
yeah.
What strikes me is the depth that they seem to have. And it's interesting that the Cavs can go without a big name player, 1 or 2 nights, and then there's someone else that can step up. And there's been different guys that have stepped up throughout the year.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll be the first to admit that, like, coming into the season, I wasn't maybe as excited because I thought they needed to do something in the offseason, thought maybe they needed to make a change and that maybe this group wasn't completely meshing together. But boy, was I wrong. And Kenny Atkinson has come in and just led this team unbelievably this year. But I think to your point, Donovan Mitchell really has taken kind of more of a leadership role this year and isn't necessarily trying to go out and score 40, 50 points like he did, or 71 last year. He's letting guys like Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and even guys off the bench like DeAndre Hunter and Ty Jerome, who's just should win the 6th man of the year this year. He's been absolutely incredible. He's just allowed those guys to take more control of the team, allowed them to have more control on offense, and yeah, he's just been more of a leader, I think, vocally and on the floor this year, and it's just kind of really opened things up for everybody. And yeah, you talk about the depth. I mean, they can play 9-10 guys in the playoffs, and we saw in the Lakers game the other night that JJ Redick played his starting 5 the entire second half. So there's not a lot of teams that have the depth that the Cavs do and have the ability that they do to play 9-10 guys, significant minutes and not lose anything when those guys are on the floor.
I feel like you mentioned it, that selfless attitude that Donovan has, and I'm glad you mentioned DeAndre and Ty, because I came from Virginia, and those two are teammates on that 2019 national championship team, and it's just fun. They go from Cavs to Cavs.
Exactly, yeah.
And they definitely have some chemistry, but I also feel like there's a bit of a freedom when they're playing on this Cavaliers team, because if you knew Tony Bennett's style, it was very like,
if they could
rugged.
win 46-45, they would.
I mean, it's like grinded out, like defense, but you can see Ty, especially when he gets going from outside the arc. I mean, that fourth quarter performance, I believe in, what was it, game 2 at home? I mean, that was such a spark, and that was probably the closest the Heat got to getting to the Cavaliers, and of course they end up kind of pulling away. Let's kind of take a big picture look. As of this recording, we actually don't know who the Cavs will play. It's looking like the Pacers. They're up 3-1. They'll play tonight. And then, you look at the other half of that Eastern Conference bracket, it's looking like it's Knicks and Celtics. Just what are your thoughts about the path ahead? I don't think they're going to have as easy of a time as they did against the Heat.
No, absolutely not. That, they played, I think the Pacers maybe a few years ago in the playoffs, but the Pacers, obviously they've been there for the last couple of years, so a little bit more experience. They have guys like Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam who've been there before, so I think they'll certainly give the Cavs certainly more competition than the Heat did. They like to get up and down the floor a little bit, so I would expect some pretty high scoring games against them for sure. But it just looks like right now the Cavs are just on a mission, and hopefully Darius Garland, who missed those last 2 games in Miami, hopefully he's able to come back healthy for the Indiana series. So it looks like Cavs and Boston are maybe on a collision course for a rematch in the Eastern Conference Finals. It's going to be an interesting series. I know Matt Barnes is really excited about it. Our resident Pacers fan. We're
gonna have to get you two together at some point.
Yeah, he and I have already been talking about it. Of course, Eric Halpern's a Boston fan, so we've got them all represented here.
The Eastern Conference is covered here
I know,
at
right?
NBC4.
And no kidding. So it should be a lot of fun. We're already talking about whether we need to try to go to a game together and what that would be like. But certainly be exciting.
I guess my last one for you is, what do you think is going to get in the Cavs' way? Is it like just themselves, like just don't get in your own way? I mean, because they just seem to be clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, they really do. I think maybe the only thing is just that experience. If they were to get to an Eastern Conference Finals and play Boston, if it gets to a Game 7 and you're going up against guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown who, have been in it, won a championship, went to the Olympics, won a gold medal, all of those types of things. So when you get up against those guys who have been there before and won a championship, when you don't have that experience, you just can't necessarily predict how that's going to play out. So I think maybe that's the one thing that could get in their way. But you and I were talking kind of off air. We were a little worried about maybe the rest coming into the playoffs for the Cavs. But boy, I mean, they look refreshed, and they're shooting the ball lights out, and I just hope they can keep it going.
We'll see what that rest does for them as the playoffs continue. It is like the longest second season because it's the playoffs.
Oh gosh, we still got another probably month and a half left, hopefully.
Exactly. Well, in that case, we'll definitely be seeing you again, Matthew Herchik. Always appreciate the time. Thanks as always. That'll do it for this edition of the NBC4 Sports Digital Roundtable. Until next time, we'll catch you later.